Hey guys, this is John again. So I've got another little item sorter, I guess, project that I've been working on. So this is what's called a slot reservation free or slot free multi-item sorter. So I guess in the video I'll go over what it is, what it's useful for, and then get into how it works and a tutorial on how to make it. Okay, so what this does, so you have a single slice of a sorter here, right? So this is a 3 wide model, so from the observers here to the front, and this is just your input, right? So what it does is you have an output that you actually sort multiple items into. And then from the output, you can just have a hopper, a hopper line or whatever going to a line of chests. And those chests will always get these particular items. Every other item that does not match these will get passed through and go to, whatever else. In this case, another sorter. And the way that you do that is by, putting particular items in here. In this case, I just have 2 different items and then just a bunch of filler, whatever. But you could put an entire chest full of items in here and have these all go out into a particular slot of chests, right? Or, row of chests. So that's what it does. It allows you to take multiple items and sort them into a chest, just like a multi-item sorter. Except you don't have to, put items in the chest in any particular order. You just leave it as empty chests. And so I'll go ahead and show that here. By the way, this is not going to be silent because I got a little lazy with the redstone back here. But what this is two multi-item sorters here put next to each other just to show you. So we have an input that comes into a dropper elevator to go into the system, and it comes out of one sorter, goes to another elevator, and comes up to the stack, right? So the benefit is that you can put things like, this is what I would use it for in survival. You can put, whatever items into the input, and if they match the item that you have in the chest here, then they're all going to come down in this row. And I don't have to worry about putting items, in slots to reserve anything, nothing like that. So all cobblestone, smooth stone, mossy cobble, whatever, is all going to go into this chest. So the benefit of this system is that we can have one item sorter that will pull out every cobble, every stone. You could put dirt, andesite, granite, gravel. So that's what I would use it for, is any type of block that you get from mining to go into a particular slot, right? And that's what this is going to do. Now, as far as replacing a multi-item sorter with this, I would not do that. So the reason why is because this is really expensive. Now, I just saw that Cass from Izuma, that he uploaded a new system that still looked expensive, but, it's probably much better than anything like this. And the reason why is because his is so fast. But, let's see, it looks like this is done already. Yeah. But for anything like all your other stuff, so saplings and wood and flowers and meat that you cooked and everything else, I would not put any of that in here. And the reason why is because if I went to fill up a double chest of items here, and let's say I put all my wood in here, right? So first of all, it's really expensive to make this, and second of all, it's just going to be putting the wood and stuff in the chest here randomly. Just like these will just come in here randomly, you know, and then stack up, and then they'll start randomly and whatever. So if I put all my, you know, wood and stuff in one chest, right, then I may have oak here, you know, and may have some oak here, and then may have some saplings here, you know, and so I'd still have to dig through all my chests to try to find where an item is. So to me, it's not really worth it. I mean, if I wanted to do that, then I just put it in a normal multi-item sorter, and that way I know where it all is, you know, and it's all categorized and in place. But for things like cobble or, you know, stone, where you're going to have double chests of stuff, and, you know, that's the stuff that you don't really want to sort through because it takes forever, you know. And you don't want that to go into a multi-item sorter because it takes up too much room, and it's just a real waste of space for it. But with one of these, the benefit of having one of these is that if you ever wanted more space, then you could simply come up here, put another dropper elevator slice here. So we're just going to put down a couple more observers. Right, so put down another chest. And another hopper. And there you go. And now I have an entire new double chest that I can fill with cobble and dirt and stone and everything else, you know, if this ever filled up. And it's not just on the top, you know, because these are hoppers. I can put it, you know, like I've had another floor below, a basement, whatever. Then I could just come down with some more hoppers, go to another chest, and then create a whole nother stack of, you know, space. And I can have this, because this is half hopper speed, I can have this before my multi-item sorter, you know, and then I can filter out all the junk that I don't want to be going into that, and that'll all go into here, right? So it is very useful. But as far as making multiples of these and putting them right next to each other, I wouldn't do it, just because, you know, it kind of defeats the purpose, right? So anyway, I'll go over how this works and how I got to where I am now with that, you know, with this type of technology. So I started off, I saw a couple videos. I think it was one video by one Tick Pulse on YouTube, and he had a system, and that made me really want to try to figure it out. And so this is where I started with one of these monsters, right? So these worked. You know, that's another working model. That's another working model. The problem is that these are all very slow, and I'll get into the reasons why. But anyway, this is my graveyard of multi-item sorters here that I made to you know, understand and to study how they work. So here's a model, and I want to just show you how slow this is, right? So we just put some redstone in. And I mean, yeah, it's working, right? But I mean, look how slow it is. So if you can imagine that you had, you know, a few slices of these, you know, right next to each other, and you're trying to filter your items in. I mean, it's so slow, like, honestly, what's the point? You know? I mean, it works, yeah, but, you know, by the speed that it goes, I mean, and the bad thing is that if you leave an area, you know, anything in Bedrock, if you leave an area and unload the chunk, then it's going to start to break. So, I mean, you put a few stacks of stuff in here, and you're gonna have to wait around your base for forever for this thing to finish. So the reason why, I'll get into how these things operate. So all we have here is essentially a normal item sorter, right? So we have a comparator coming out, you know, a repeater, torch, and all that. So we have a filter hopper, but in place of, you know, putting a particular item in here, we're going to make sure that the filter hopper is always going to be at the limit. You know, so if I put an item in, it pulls it out immediately, right? And let me get all that back. So what we do is we lock the filter hopper, and we only unlock it whenever we put an item into the system. Okay, so in particular, whenever we put an item into the system, it's going to, let's see, I can demonstrate that by removing that. Okay. So in this particular hopper, we have gray wool and we have cobble, right? Speaking of, I'll go ahead and put some more in there. So if I put a cobble in here, excuse me. So my input hopper is going to push it into the filter, and after my input item goes into the filter, this little torch tower here, this one tick generator, is going to unlock the filter and allow it to pull an item down. So if the item that you put in matches one in the chest, then you're going to end up with 2 items here. So that's how the system knows that you put in an item that matched, right? So if I put in something that doesn't match, like a lever, then you can see that the lever is in the chest, but you know, it can't stack to anything, so it's there by itself, right? So first, I guess practical, you know, operation procedure of this is that you put in an item and it goes into the filter before that unlocks. Okay, so after it unlocks, the sorter is going to activate and it's going to let the item pass down. Okay, so that's what you see there, 1 item. Okay, so you can see that if we have cobble in there, right, and then we put a cobble in here, well, I'll go ahead and show you first with, not with cobble. So the max rate on these is half hopper speed, right? So if I put in, just say 5 redstone, so because they don't match, the system can operate, you know, at half hopper speed, which you can tell by looking at the lights here. So we have item, space, item, space, item, space, right? So you can see the max hopper speed is, or max rate is half hopper, which is great. You know, that's fast. Excuse me. But if we put in an item that does match, the problem arises that the system has to slow down to be able to process the items. Okay, so if you look at the light pattern now, so now we have, because I put in a cobble and it matched, you can see that it unlocked the filter and pulled an item down. So we have cobble, cobble, space, cobble, cobble, space, cobble, cobble, space, which drops from what, half hopper speed down to, you know, nearly a 1/3 hopper speed, right? I'm guessing, because we have 3. You know, we're taking up 3 hoppers now just for a single item. And what I mean by a single item is like I input a single item and it's going to take up 3 spaces or 3 hoppers to process it, right? So you can see that our speed just dropped dramatically. And this is the speed that that one back there was running at, which, I mean, you can't do anything with that. It's just way too slow. So I went through and discovered and looked at all the timings and everything, because what other people were doing was they would take that slowest rate and they would clock the entire system at that rate. So first I made a sorter like this, where you just put a repeater to lock the input, and what that allowed it to do was you could have you know, the items passing through at half hopper speed if they did not match, and then if they did match, then they would slow it down to the operating speed. But that's still a pretty bad idea. So I came up with this system on my own here, or the system of my own, that instead of using the sorter to lock the top hopper, we're actually using a comparator in front of it. So this gives us a constant rate of locking and unlocking, right? So I'll go ahead and demonstrate what the benefit is. So if I put in, just say some random items that don't match. So they're going to work their way down at half hopper speed, right? So looks like we're still the same as the old system, right? Because we got item space. But the difference is when we go ahead and put in an item that does match. So I'll just put a few cobble in. So with the other one where we had item space, right? Item space. Well, you can see now that I took what was our original half hopper speed, you know, and I just filled in the blank hopper, right? So now we have cobble, you know, and this is, how many did I put in? 5? 1, 2. Yeah, so we have 10 items here, right? So you can see that it detected the cobble, released another cobble, detected the cobble, released another cobble. So it goes up to, the item stream goes up from, you know, from being a third hopper speed to, you know, full hopper speed to be able to handle all the items. Well, it doesn't go up to full hopper speed. It's still, the overall rate from your input is still half hopper speed, but you know, now the system is operating at full hopper speed to be able to handle the items to keep up with it. Okay. So this front section, if you saw my, you know, my dropper sorter videos, then you'd probably recognize this. This is the lock that I use on top of the dropper sorters to make sure that it's half hopper speed. So if your input source is half hopper speed, then you don't need this little part. And this is really the only functioning part of the system, is a comparator going to the torch, going to the repeater to the torches, and then underneath that I have an improved or a faster sorter timing here. So we just have the comparator coming down to the dust with the torch, and the torch goes up to lock it. So if you added a repeater here, that would slow this down and, you know, maybe you know, cause it to break if you have lag or something, I don't know, but to me that just slowed it down for no reason, so I took it off. But anyway, to get into some of the other working parts of this, so of course we have a dropper elevator that has to feed the items back up to the top, because all we're doing, honestly, is we're saying, okay, I put in a cobblestone. Does it match a cobblestone in here? Yes. So then it lets both down, right? So all we're doing really is making an item splitter down here, because whatever item it pulled out, it has to put back in the top chest. And the other item always comes down into your output chest, right? But in reality, all it's doing is it's sending every item that you put into the system, every item is going into the dropper elevator. So whether it's cobble or redstone or whatever, anything, whether it matches or doesn't match, it's going to send it into the dropper elevator. The only thing that this system does, it says, okay, you put in a cobble, so I'll give you a cobble. And then that cobble, you know, comes into the output. Okay, so it's a really simple concept for an item sorter. It really is. But anyway, so some of the other working parts. So I had 2 models made. I have one based off of the observer elevators, and I have one based off of the torch elevators. Torch elevators, of course, are not reliable because Bedrock. But if you, again, if you watch my dropper sorter videos, then you'd see, that I use a splitter like this for my hopper speed dropper sorter. So all it does is takes an input at hopper speed, and it breaks it down into two evenly distributed outputs. And you do that with a comparator with a dust to lock that hopper, and we have a torch coming off to lock that hopper. So it's going to, lock and unlock sequentially. And then from there we have a 1-tick generator going to the observers to power the droppers, right? But the neat thing about this is that if I give it items at a slow rate, particularly, half hopper speed or slower, then every item that I put in is going to come out the dropper elevator, right? So I put in 6, I got out 6, okay? But if I put them in at a faster rate, say hopper speed, then it's going to take half of those items, pass them up the dropper elevator, and then it's going to take the other half and pass them into the output chest. So let me just make sure that's clear. So okay, so I put in 6, I got 3 here, and of course I only got 2 there because this torch is going to keep that hopper locked, but there's my 3rd, right? So, it's pretty much a functioning item splitter. And this is this operates in the same way, it's just wired a little differently. Yeah, so in place of having the comparator with dust and a block, because I can't, do anything right there because of the torches on the other side, I had to use repeaters. So this had to get pulled off a little bit, but, it still functions the same way. So, oops, that was 7. So yeah, I'll get 4 here, and I'll get 3 more down here, so that would be 3 there. So those are the main basic parts. Aside from that, at the top of the dropper elevator here, again, if you watch some guys from Java, they'll have a dropper here, which I'll show you in a little bit in the tutorial, but they'll have a dropper here pointing into this dropper. But in Bedrock, that's not reliable. So at the top, I just used a little piece of a dropper sorter here just to, be able to... I'll put those in too fast, but whatever. So to make sure that the item actually goes back into the chest, I had to make a little dropper sorter, so that's what that is. Okay, so I'll get into showing you how to make them, and they are 3 wide, but I don't particularly see any reason why you would make more than one, because they are pretty heavy on materials. I think they're like 8 hoppers or something like that to make one. So I'll just start making up. And we're going to put in our filter, our locking hopper, and then this is going to be our output. And let's see, to make the sorter, in some areas you can use glass or either glass or half slabs. It's kind of up to you. But you're going to want to put down a glass coming from behind your locking hopper there, and you're going to want a glass in front of that hopper, and I'll tell you why in a second. Let's see, I think we need another block here. Yeah. Okay, so the way that you make the sorter is comparator dust, torch there, and dust coming up to lock the second hopper. and you don't need that block or that one. Okay, so generally it's pretty easy. You can use a half slab here or a half slab here, but I mean I just use glass because whatever. And you also need to use glass here, or actually yeah, just glass. You can't use a half slab here because of course if you use a solid block here it would power the redstone and you don't want it to do that. Alright, so the input, again, you don't need all these hoppers if you're coming from something that is at half hopper speed or, you know, slower than half hopper speed, but I do that just for the input. Alright, so we're going to come off with a few blocks here. So you want a comparator, repeater. This is going to be what controls the entire system here. So we're going to need a little torch. Yoink. And just put some blocks here to where you can put redstone on top of that block. Okay? So the purpose of that is to keep the filter locked until an item actually passes in front of this comparator. Right? So you saw it unlock there for a second. Okay. Where are we at? Oh, yeah, it's still locked, of course. Okay, and for the input timing, just to make sure that it's going to be half hopper speed. Yeah. So that's all you do. And then you can put a chest here or any other input. Alright, so coming off the front of this hopper, I'm going to put a chest. And behind that you want a hopper just pointing back or pointing into nothing. And below that hopper, we're going to put one pointing to the side. And that's going to be going into the dropper elevator. And then coming off the side or underneath the other half of the chest, we just want a dropper going down, and this is going to be our output. And if you're worried about that last item that gets stuck in there with the torch, you can, you know, put another hopper below this and it'll pull the item out. But otherwise, I mean, if it's cobble or stone or whatever, it doesn't matter if one item gets stuck in there, you know. I mean, the next time the system operates, it's just going to pull it out anyway. So we need to come off of that hopper with a comparator, block, dust, and we're going to block on top of that to make another lock, and a block above that dust. Okay, then you can just put a torch there. And I need my droppers. And we'll go ahead and make the little dropper elevator. Yeah. And I'll get into the top part of that in a second. But here we're going to want to put our repeater to fire the first dropper. So that repeater is going to get powered by the dust here. And to make the one-tick generator, we want to come off the front of that dust. Right there. Okay, and we're going to put two torches, one on each side, and blocks above those. Okay, and then we want a torch there with a block, and a torch there, and dust. Alright, so that's going to generate a one-tick pulse every time the comparator goes off. Then you want to block and put observers. Come on, observer. Okay, and we're just going to finish the little dropper elevator. Alright, so if you watch One Tick Pulse's video, he uses a dropper here, which you can't do in Bedrock. Yoink. Okay. So he uses a dropper there to feed another dropper, and he just powers them together. In fact, he powers them through a top half slab, which you couldn't even dream to do in Bedrock. But that's not reliable, and a lot of the testing that I've done, if you try to power both of these at the same time, sometimes it would work when you reload the game, sometimes it may not work. So there's no point in doing that when we can just do something more reliable. So you just put a hopper, and we're going to make another dropper sorter piece here. So all that does is when the item goes into the hopper and that pushes it into the dropper, we're going to make sure it fires at the right time. Alright, so dust repeater on top of the hopper, and we can just see that that's operating. Okay. So now we can go ahead and put in our filter material. And by the way, I think I'm just going to go ahead and put down a chest. So what's going to happen is whenever I reach the limit, of course, it's going to send an item back up here. And if we had another one, okay, so we did. Alright, and for the last part, you want to fill up the filter, or fill up the item chest with a filter material. So this is just to, or with a filler material, it's just to take up space. Because the way that this operates is just like a dropper sorter. So if the item can come back up and go into this chest, it will. If not, then it won't. And from there, you just take, you know, whatever item you want to sort, and you can put it in here. And you're going to need quite a few. You're going to need more than one item. And I'll show you why. I think we're all set up here. So with each item that I put in, it's going to pull down a matching item. Now, because we're moving at half hopper speed, which is pretty fast, it's going to pull down multiple items. Okay, so you see we're at item 4 and 5. So we originally had, what, 8 cobblestone in here? So we have a constant 3 items and then sometimes 4 items that are stuck, you know, going throughout the system. So you have to have at least, I'd say at least 10 items in here just to be safe. And aside from that, to go ahead and finish this off, underneath this dropper, you're going to put a hopper. And that's going to be your output that you can, you know, go into, you know, a normal item sorter or whatever. So whatever items that are not cobblestone are just going to pass through and come out here. Okay. And to go over the one that uses the torch ladder, or however you say that, torch tower. The problem with these is that they do break. I don't know if I've said it before, but the way that Bedrock works, in Java they make these all the time and they're fine. Because in Java, if something is getting powered directly, like if you have a torch right in front of it, then it's, or a redstone, dust touching it, whatever, or a repeater, whatever is powered directly will always update before something that's powered indirectly, which in this case, this top dropper is powered indirectly. So in Java, they're always going to fire this dropper before that one, which is fine, you know, because then your items will just come up and go wherever. But in Bedrock, it fires whatever randomly. So it says, oh, okay, that one's powered indirectly, well, I'll just fire that one first, you know. So if your item's passing up here, it's going to go to shoot up into this one, but this one already fired, so then the item can't go anywhere, so then it just sits here, you know. So we can see that whenever we test it out. And I'm out of cobble, but yeah. So we put the cobble in, and instead of going back up into the chest, it's just set right here. But only one item is ever going to sit here because it is getting powered. So if I ran more items through, like let's just put some torches. So the torches may, yeah. So the torch forced the cobble out, and now the torch took its place. Okay, because the droppers fire randomly. So I mean, whatever. And that could be this top dropper. That could be the second one. So as far as putting things that are important in here, like diamonds or you know, nether stars, I wouldn't use a torch ladder or a torch tower for the droppers. But it's kind of the same basic design. I don't think I need to make another tutorial just for that. But you just have the only difference is when you come off into the item splitter, you know, like I showed on the ground over there, you have these two repeaters here. So you're going to want to block behind the comparator. And then two repeaters, you know, your dust, and then a torch. And where it goes into the dropper, you're going to be firing the dropper on this side. And this should work. This should work fine. If this should give you any trouble, then at least what you can do with this is come off with, you know, dust here. This will prevent any items from, yeah, set that at 2 ticks, and you know, that doesn't matter. But if you just put this repeater in here, that will help it to, you know, not get any items stuck in here, right? Because this is a one-off firing comparator here. So anytime an item passes into this hopper or dropper, it's going to fire it off. But if you should, you know, leave the chunk and then come back, you know, who knows, you could find like 20 items just sitting in here, you know, because the dropper only fired once and it's just stuck on. So it'll never turn on again, right? So if you put a repeater here, then that'll make sure that the items always go through. And there you go. And let me just test that out just to make sure while we're looking at it. Yeah. Okay, that works. Item's still stuck. Item's still stuck. Great. Glad to know it's Bedrock and it's still working normally. So anyway, that's about you know, how these things operate, and that's about all I've come up with so far. And have I explained this yet? Just in case. So this is just to, of course, see what I could do with it. This is a full hopper speed. And the way that this operates is you can tell that it's, I'll just take a few of these, leave the grain. So you can tell that, so here's my filtering material. So I just put 20 items in here. I think you need like 10 items because I think altogether you have 10 items that go through the system. But I just put 2 of them next to each other. So this is 2 of the half hopper speeds right next to each other. So we only need the 1 lock in the front, you know, and then we have the 2 sorters on the side. And because of the way that this operates, is that it? Yeah. So like I showed on the ground down here, right? So when it goes to collect the items, so you actually go into full hopper speed, which means item, 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 item. So we have to have 2 hoppers here, right? No matter what you do, if you wanted to make the system full hopper speed, because we're actually double hopper speed right now, because we have a full line of items in this one, and we have a full line of items in that one, right? So we're going down to two of the item splitters down here, and that's our output. rest of the items, I just have going to this single hopper speed item elevator here to go back up into the chest. But yeah, so like it pulled down 9 items to get this thing to function. So we have 9 items that are just flowing through the system. So it's pretty cool. No real purpose, no real point. But anyway, you know, it's pretty interesting technology. It took a lot of work for me to get this far on these, you know, to understand the timing. I just couldn't understand why it's so complicated, or why it was so complicated. And you know, in fact, I still think I'm probably going to keep working on something like this, because I think it could be even more simple than this, you know, with just basically just item splitters. But that's something I'm looking into. But anyway, so if you need any help, or if you need any, if anybody else needs anything or has any other comments, you can just let me know. Until then, thank you for watching, and best of luck.